Welcome friends to another r/MaliciousCompliance video. Today we've got a great story of complying with HR, but first a story from Boohow. I'll tell you things you have no business knowing. Enjoy! I used to work for a manager who had never managed before, or he had never managed anything important, I'm not sure which. He could not cover for me as he didn't know my job, and my crew could handle things when it was slow, but we were generally short of manpower. One day I needed the day off for medical purposes. I filed my paperwork in advance and the day off was approved. When I reminded him about it the day before my leave, he wasn't happy. "Are you sure you can't come in?" "I have a doctor appointment tomorrow and I filed my paperwork telling you I'm off." I stopped there because it's none of his business and actually illegal for the employer to dig into an employee's medical reasons. They say, "But it isn't really going to take all day, is it?" Again, this is illegal and it's pissing me off. I say I need the whole day. They say, "When is your appointment? Can't you come in after?" Seriously? Fine, I'll tell you things you have no business knowing. Enjoy. I say, "Well, I guess. My colonoscopy is scheduled for 8 a.m. and I think that takes about half an hour, but I don't know how long the sedative takes to wear off. I can't drive tomorrow, but maybe my mom can drop me off and pick me back up again later. I'll be high as a kite, but I can probably get something done. No way in heck I can get any work done to anyone's standards after coming out of twilight sedation, but whatever." The look on his face would have done a carp proud. There's a reason I didn't want to tell you, dimwit, but if you want the nitty-gritty, I can go into detail. I'm pretty sure he never asked anyone anywhere about their health ever again. I mean, to be honest, it is pretty disgusting that they're trying to pry so much into whatever medical procedure you are having. That said, do you guys think it's a bit sensitive to be like totally grossed out or put off if somebody says, "Oh, I'm having a colonoscopy"? Like, I guess if you imagine it, it's not a pretty picture. But is it surprising that somebody would be so put off by just somebody going, "Oh, I'm having a colonoscopy," that somebody nosy like that would never ask about anything ever again? I'm not the only one that thinks it's overly surprising that that's what stopped them, right? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Our next story is from Garlic Bread Rules. Tell me to pick up my tools and get out? I forgot to tell you the printer was fixed. I used to carry a toolkit for a large computer company. I would fix computers, terminals, disk and tape, and printers. One time I got called to a trucking company in North Carolina to work on a printer. This was a large band printer with paper and a continuous sheet. They'd do their trucking invoices and orders on it. It was really messed up and it took me forever to fix it. Other people had fixed it before, and the customer was pissed. I was young and just out of the Marines. It was my first shot at fixing it. I finally got it working. I was just cleaning up and was about to tell the manager when he came in yelling at me. He told me to pack up my tools and get out. Now, in the meantime, no trucks are being dispatched. They would print the shipping documents on this thing. So I said nothing, packed up my tools and left. 2 hours later, they get another repair person out from the office in there. He does a test print, looks at the manager, and tells him it's fixed and working fine. He said the look on the manager's face was priceless. Be a witch to a repair person just trying to do her job? Don't dispatch trucks for 2 hours because she just follows your orders and leaves. Stories like this is why I generally, in the business world, believe that being a hothead almost never solves anything. Like, I can imagine there's times where it's just so frustrating, maybe something is so costly that it's just hard to control yourself. But in general, the idea of escalating the situation, yelling, raising your voice, solving anything, I think usually it stands to only do more harm than good. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our next story is from WitchyWolf94. Boss says I can't come in early to set up my cart, so I come in right at clock-in. Coworker who leaves early gets mad at me. So this happened back in 2015 through 2016. I, now 28-year-old female, was working as a phlebotomist in a local hospital, and I worked first shift, which was about 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. I love to come in about 10 to 15 minutes early and just set up my cart. Nothing fancy, just metal wired shelving types, and we had our own personal phlebotomist trays that we put in the top section of the cart. I didn't always restock my tray before leaving my shift, so I typically come in early to organize it and get my metal cart ready. It usually took me maybe 5 minutes to put my tray in a cart and put the handful of tubes I needed back in place. Then I'd spend the rest of my time waking up in the break room with coffee. Well, one woman, I can't remember her age, who came into work a few months after I started to have issues with me. I found her lazy and rude. Examples: she would come in and snap at people when they tried to help her. She would take a book with her during morning rush, which was 3 a.m. to 6 or 7 a.m., and sit on the floor to read and not come back to the lab to help after collecting her labs. She would hang out during the nurses' celebrations and not come back for hours at a time. She wouldn't clock in until the last second, and then she'd clock out the earliest minute she could. When it was time to start the morning rush, she would get mad if someone took the stack of labs she wanted, and she would go demanding them. She and I worked the same overnight shift, but I got tired of her attitude and switched shifts. Well, like I said, I like to come early and set up my cart before I clocked in, and she figured this out quickly. So she would try to hand me the stroke or trauma pager, something that needed to be handed to the next phlebotomist who was scheduled to take it that shift. But she would try to give me hers even if I wasn't scheduled for that one, but I refused, saying, "I'm not clocked in yet." So she just left it on my cart a few times without telling me, which led to it going off for a call to the ER, and I had to clock in early, and when I saw her in the lab again, I told her to never do that again. The conversation got heated, which led to a meeting with me, the coworker, and our supervisor. Our supervisor took her side and said, "Just take it, and if it goes off, you clock in and then I'll adjust the clock on the computer," saying she'd shorten my time on the clock. So I said fine. I set my alarm for later in the mornings, and I started coming in the last minute I could to clock in at 2:59 a.m. Yes, it made me start my rush a little later, but the look on my coworker's face when she saw me later, right before she was supposed to clock out, as she was trying to hand me a pager I wasn't scheduled to have, and I already had the one I was supposed to, was priceless. She complained to the supervisor, who tried to talk to me, but I said, "Well, I'm not supposed to be here until 3, so that's when I get here and clock in now. I don't want my hours messed up." She didn't even try to argue. The coworker was very upset. She even screamed through the lab demanding someone take her pager so she could go home. It was still 20 minutes until her shift was done. I wonder if there's anything more going on between that coworker and the supervisor that would, influence them to take her side on everything despite her being blatantly wrong. I mean, why else would they bend over backwards just to try to placate her? Are they short on staff they can't afford, even if they're a terrible coworker, to let them go? Our next story is from Revolution Friendly 56. HR says only smart people can work here. I work for a small company, and we have a one-man HR department. We often get all sorts of memos detailing policies that sound good on paper but never make practical sense. I think maybe HR got all of its education on YouTube or Reddit, or learned it while being mentored after hours by the CEO. Recently, HR implemented a new standardized testing for screening new candidates, which scores candidates on their skills in mathematics, language, logic, and a bunch of industry-specific questions. The idea is to weed out those who present well on paper and in person, but in fact can't do the most basic stuff. While this could be an excellent idea to weed out the morons that keep walking through the door, HR thought it's an excellent idea to make everyone, including those who have already been here for years, to do it as well. For the employee files, of course. HR gave a metric for where scores should range for new candidates, sent us links to complete the tests, and requested that they're completed by Friday. As we all know, HR never does things just for employee files. We suspect HR is trying to get rid of a few crucial people who aren't great with computers, not fast on a calculator, but are in fact the beating souls to the workplace. Everyone at the office pretty much all boycotted the test. When HR pressurized the CEO to threaten our bonuses, we begrudgingly complied. HR wants to score us based on arbitrary standardized tests as benchmarks? Sure. We spent the next 3 days after hours working on the test together, one test at a time. At the end, we all scored 9 out of 10 in every category because we got some pretty bright people helping out. And guess what? We forced HR to do the same test, and HR scored 5 out of 10 for math, 4 out of 10 for logic. Guess you should be on the chopping block. All I know is if I was working at a company like this and they said, "Hey, we want you to take this test just to show us how good you actually are at doing your job," I would be personally offended. You would know, am I doing good or not doing good at my job? Am I a liability or not? HR or my boss or the CEO or whoever should be able to tell if I'm a liability or not without me doing some progress report homework test thing. Our next story is from Fighting Blind. Install it where? Okay. I worked for an alarm system installer for almost 2 years. By the second year, I was a team lead for a small sales area. One day, one of my techs called frustrated and tells me that the homeowner was drunk and insisted on putting the glass break detector in the hallway of the mobile home because that's where the salesperson said it would go. I go over to this mobile home and quickly realize this person isn't going to be swayed. I smile and say I understand completely. The customer's always right. I then turn and give the tech a wink and say, go ahead and install it where he wants. The work is done, and the customer signs the document that says the work's been done to his specifications. Now, a glass break detector basically does what it sounds like. You mount it on the ceiling above a window, and if the window breaks, the detector hears the sound and sends a signal to the panel. This happens whether you arm the panel for stay or away, because windows can still be broken while you're at home. This is also an immediate alarm, so you don't have a system countdown to turn off the panel. This is tuned for the frequency of broken glass, but it'll trigger for any sufficiently loud noise. We do the test with either a glass break sound app on the phone or a power drill. This just happened to be mounted above his granddaughter's door. She apparently slammed the door a lot. A week later, I come home to the house on a service call since the alarm had gone off multiple times. The man is no longer drunk, and after explaining the situation, he's actually very apologetic and says he regrets having us see him drunk. We moved the glass break to a better location and never had a problem with his system for the rest of the time I was there. Honestly, I could imagine a lot of installers doing exactly what OP did with even less care, as in if they say they want it in a specific location. I bet a lot of installers, they're not even going to be too concerned about whether or not this is really actually a good place for it. They're just going to throw it up there on the wall and take your check. And beyond that, if you want it moved, they'll probably want to take another check from you. But hey, even if that did happen, there's only one person to blame, and that's OP for contracting it to go up right there on that wall. Or maybe the salesperson for misguiding them, I don't know. And our final story of the day is from Last Standing 1. You want me to just deal with her? You got it. Years ago, I was teaching a subject as a collaborative at a different department. There was a particular student that I noticed her behavior to be questionable, but I don't get myself involved with students beyond academics. She skipped most classes, and she used to wear sunglasses indoors all the time. I came into the class, covered my material, gave assessments, and left. She was quiet and never engaged in the class, and I never pressed anyone who's not willing to participate because they were all adults. She skipped almost all classes and never did a single assessment, so she was failing at the subject. My office is in a different building. As I said, I was collaborating with a department, but not part of it. At the end of the semester, she came to my office and asked me if she can take all of the exams and assessments that she missed. I looked at her baffled, and she said the head of her department told her it's okay, and it's all up to me as the subject coordinator. I told her to wait and called the head and asked her what's going on and why they sent her to me. She said, well, she's failing almost every class and all the marks are locked in the system, and no modifications are allowed past a certain date. Just tell her you won't accept her requests. To that I replied, why didn't you tell her that? Why tell her to come to me? To that she said, just deal with her. I knew there was something wrong, and she wanted me to deal with this clearly unstable individual by myself. So I dealt with her. I told her I will gladly do all her assessments, but I don't have access to the grading system in their department, which I'm only collaborating with, not part of. She gave me a strange smile, thanked me, and left. Next thing I knew, the police were called to their department because the head was assaulted by that student. Thankfully, no one got hurt because admin staff and security were able to apprehend the student until the police arrived. I mean, yikes, but also screw that other person for trying to dump this on OP. I mean, obviously this goes way beyond the concept of being uncomfortable telling somebody no or shooting them down. But even in that situation where somebody has such an inability to just say no to people that they'd rather push them off on other people to deal with, That definitely gets me angry. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy compliance story, click on that left video, or if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.